Hello again and welcome back. Hopefully I've gotten a few more viewers and hits, but we're going to be starting another, I don't know if you call it a charcuterie board or a cutting board. I'm not really sure what way I'm going with this. I got a big piece of walnut and we're going to be processing it down. I'm going to be trying this whole ocean wave epoxy deal. This seems to be really cool, so I've kind of ordered the stuff to do that, and we're going to give it a shot and see what happens. So let's start by getting this huge chunk of walnut cut down to size, and we'll go from there. Okay, so at this point I have a really oblong piece of wood or multiple angles that I'm dealing with. I have a center edge that is going to kind of act as my square point for everything else on this board, and I have a little bit of a drawing of what I want to accomplish here. So at this point it's time to kind of square this all up, and then I'm going to use some French angles to get different angles that I want in the board. Like if we did this other.
Well, that one just died.
Let's go another inch.
Man down.
Hello, we're back to working on my cutting board. Have to apologize. Some point of moving the camera over to the bandsaw. My camera died and I didn't realize it. So this is kind of what we're left with after cutting it out on the bandsaw. You know, honestly, I'm having a really hard time deciding which way I want to orientate this, because as you can see, the grain on both sides is just amazing. So I don't know exactly what I'm going to do, but we're going to keep whittling away at this project and let it figure itself out. I wanted to try to split this down the middle and get two boards out of this. I don't think it's going to be thick enough, which is unfortunate, because both sides the grain is just amazingly beautiful. But for right now, let's cut the hole for the handle piece, and that may be all I get to do today, because it is my birthday and people are coming over and I have to smoke some meat. So all right, so we're gonna do this ocean wave type epoxy. This seems really popular. I haven't tried it yet. I think I probably already mentioned that. But what I want to do prior to doing that on this board is I want to route this down a little bit because I want this to be flush with the wood top. I don't want the epoxy to be over the top of it. So I'm going to route down. I don't know exactly how far. I'm just kind of going to eyeball it to where I can get the waves in there, and then also put maybe like an 2/8 of an inch of clear coat over that, and it will be flush with the wood top. So to do that, I'm going to use my plunge router, and I'm just going to start working a pattern that, you know, might look like an ocean wave coming in. Have this routed out. You can see that. I'm pretty happy with the contour I did. I think it's about, I don't know, I haven't measured it or anything, but maybe 1/2 inch deep. And then I've also noticed that right here at the hearthwood, it's starting to crack. And I may or may not just take that off and let that do its thing. It would definitely give it a cool contour. Let's see if I can get you a good shot. I don't know. I'm undecided, so I'm just gonna see how this kind of evolves. All right, it's epoxy day. Off camera, I've taken the liberty of mixing my epoxies that I'm going to be doing for this ocean scene cell wave thing. And I have made my board and gotten it ready to pour. Now, the reason I'm doing it this way is because I want this edge to be square. So I'm going to lay a little bit of foundation to get this edge squared up again with epoxy. And then we'll come back and do the whole ocean wave scene over the top of it. I also decided to cut a couple little grooves here to put a little bit of epoxy in the handle as well. So we'll pour that today as well. So let's get going. Okay, we've had this epoxy drying for 2 days now. So it's time to pull it out of the form and hopefully we'll start making the ocean part of it. Okay, so we have prepped this board for the next few layers of epoxy. I kind of sanded the previous epoxy so that the new stuff will adhere to it, and cleaned it up. And now we're just gonna mix some different colors and give this ocean technique a try. So I'm not really sure how well this will work using the powder pigments. I've only watched like 2 videos on how to do this, and it seemed like neither one of those were using powder pigments. I did buy an acrylic white to do the cells with, so hopefully this will all pan out. Let's see what that does. Just feel like so let that set for a few minutes and come over that with the clear and white. Well, I'm not sure if I'm doing this right or not, but the good news is I have a lot of layers to pour, so I think by the end of this I should have figured it all out. Looks kind of cool though. All right, so I decided I didn't want this epoxy to go bad since I made a little more than I probably needed.
Ugh.
So I'm going to start this top layer.
Oh, somebody's like way too tight. Can I use that for my hair?
No.
It's way too hot.
Yeah. Burn yourself really bad. I added some Tyvek tape just to build some bulk and not have so much runoff. With each of these next layers, I've tried to kind of lighten up how much pigment I use in the epoxy. So that you can see what I did on the previous pour through it. But I mean, I actually even had to add just even less than. Either way, right now, I just want to build up some bulk. So you may not even see the cells that I did previously in here. But that's okay. We have tons of layers to do, so we'll get this whole process figured out. Okay guys, so it's been about a day. I did come back off camera and I just filled in some of this epoxy to get it at one flat level. I'm gonna go ahead and add, or try to add, some more of these waves and cells. You didn't really miss anything. I just added more epoxy with the same three colors, darker to lighter. I've already mixed up my clear epoxy and some white epoxy. I'm using Pour Me a River white pigment for the white. And let's see if we can make this happen. All right, I feel like we're starting to get some really cool cells through here, but I'm probably gonna come back and do a few more layers. At least 2, I would think. Try to get some more wave in here. All right, so I've let this sit overnight. I came in and scuffed it up with like 120 grit sandpaper for the next coat. I think I'm gonna do one more set of ocean waves, and then I'll come back in a couple hours after that and just coat it with a clear coat top. That way, as this gets used, I could sand it a few more times before I start cutting into the actual ocean wave cells. So that should make it last a little bit longer. Let's tie that together. I think we're gonna call that good for ocean waves. All right, I've let this thing sit for a few hours now, and I'm just gonna add in the last bit of clear epoxy to fill this in. And to do that, I'm gonna add a little bit of Tyvek tape around the edges so that it doesn't run off like the rest of it has been.
Alright, it has been 2 or 3 days since I poured this last coat of clear epoxy, so it's pretty hard now and should be hard enough to go ahead and clean up these edges and finish this project up. So, let's get going. I think what I'm going to do is run this side through my joiner to get this nice and flat, and then I'll just use my saw to cut this flat. I normally don't like running epoxy through my planer or jointer, but it's pretty hard, and I'm about due for some blade changes anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it that way. And then we'll sand this whole thing down, some of these other epoxies around the edges. I think I'm going to end up cutting off some of the back side of this, because I'm not sure I'm really liking it. And we'll brand it, oil it, and it'll be done.
Next, it's time to clean up this bottom. I'm gonna start with the 60 grit sandpaper and work my way all the way up. And once that's flat, we'll work on the top. Okay, I've taken this down to 120 grit. And I think I'm gonna stop there and cut some of this off and start the front side, and I'll finish it all together. I think I like that edge a lot better. So I'm gonna start sanding the top side, and then I think I'm probably gonna do a round over on the edges, but we'll see. I'm gonna start with an 80 grit. $120. I'm gonna hand sand this inside edge, which takes a little longer, but that's okay. Okay, we've gone from, in some parts, 60 grain to 80 grain, 120, 180, 220, and now it's time to raise grain. We're going to hit it with a 320, and that should finish her out. All right, so although I don't need to polish a lot of this, I've managed to sand this without touching most of this top. I still want to polish the sides and the epoxy and the handle down here. So let's polish this turd. Now I'm gonna round over the sides a little bit with my palm router and a round over bit. All right, with this thing branded, which is one of my favorite steps, the next step we're gonna do is add some mineral oil and some wax. I think out of full transparency, it's probably important to tell you that I did notice that I messed up. I did all of my finishing before I did my routing on the corners, my roundovers. And so off screen, I went ahead and had to resand those and refinish them to make them smooth and shiny. For the oil, I'm just adding some Howard cutting board oil that I got at Home Depot, I believe, or actually Lowe's, one of the two. And again, I'm just gonna leave that to soak in for a while. I think this is probably the best step to any project. Let that set overnight in its oil. Sometime here soon, I'm gonna need to just have a dedicated oil bath to put these in. But let me go ahead and wax this up now, and I think that's pretty much it. Okay, I just buffed the wax off of this and it's pretty much ready to go. Before I do the reveal, a little bit of reflection on this. This build. Overall, it was a lot of fun to do, I'm not gonna lie. I wanna give a shout out to the 2 videos that I watched to kind of prep me to do these ocean waves, and that was Deanna with Bianca Pours, her ocean epoxy resin tutorial, and Pour Me a River's video, how to make easy ocean waves effective using epoxy resin. Those kind of got me going. I feel like the ocean technique is a really good beginner intro to epoxy projects. It's pretty easy to do, though. Although I am pleased with my results, it's for doing it the first time. It wouldn't hurt to do it a few times and really learn good technique. I also feel like my heat gun didn't have powerful enough attachments, which might have made it a little bit easier. But either way, I had a lot of fun. The only thing I didn't like about this process is I lost a ton of epoxy. Probably at least 2 cups, if not a little bit more, which I hate losing epoxy. So that part of the process I didn't really like. And I'm gonna have to figure out a way to still do the layering without losing as much of the epoxy. I don't know if that's possible because you kind of want to let it run, it seems, to get those cells to spread. I'm not sure. Either way, it is what it is. Man, I had a lot of fun with it. If you're a beginner to epoxy and you want to give this a try, I really feel like it's probably an easy introduction into epoxy products, epoxy crafts, sorry. So, I hope you like this video. Join me for my next one where I do some inlays for the first time using my X-Carve, and let's see what this thing looks like. All right, so I've routed. Oop, man down. And I've run out of stirring sticks and measuring cups. I've kind of just been too lazy to go get more. So we're now into the camping supplies.